All right, YouTube, welcome back to the bunker here in Rochelle Park, New Jersey. This is another episode of Axis and Allies, the Garrison, where we are currently covering the YouTube wars. Okay, so welcome back. It is Germany's turn. It is the beginning of round seven. Yes, round seven. We're just shy. Well, beginning, yes. We just have two more rounds, including round seven, before the game is over. Okay, just to refresh your memories, guys, this game, in order for the Axis powers to win the game, they have to acquire a total of 12 victory points, okay, by the end of round 8. All right, so currently the Axis powers have 9 points, 9 victory points, and they have to acquire an additional 3, which they have to maintain, okay? It's not sufficient for them to take. They also have to hold on to those victory points, because if they lose those victory points, they lose them. They're not given credit for it. Okay, so it's a question of taking and holding as well. All right, so it is Field Marshal Sire Blood's turn, early round 7, turn, Germany's turn. All right, so let's see. Sire, he's very crafty, very ingenious. Let's see what he does, because not for nothing, even though the Axis do have a big advantage in the Atlantic, Mediterranean, and in Europe in general. Right now, it's not as easy for them as it seems. Okay, the Axis are working against the clock at this point in time. Question is, do they have enough time to achieve all of their victory points in time? Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Enjoy the episode. All right, welcome back. We're going to go over the current ground and naval situation for the German player, Field Marshal Sire Blood. Okay, currently on the Eastern Front, as you can see, there really are no considerable German forces arrayed against the Russian army on the Eastern Front. The only sizable military force is in Leningrad, where you have 3 armored divisions and 1 infantry division, along with 1 strategic bomber. Okay, down south in the area of Romania, the region of I think it's the Balkans. You have 4 infantry divisions along with 4 strategic bombers facing the might of the Russian army, because at this point in time, the Russian army is actually looking very formidable. You definitely have a well-established Russian front line arrayed against the German Reich. Okay, so, and that's something that Sire knows, and as I think both sides are pretty much, I guess, in agreement that that taking Moscow at this point in time is definitely out of the question. If anything, it is the Russian player, Dutch Lancaster, who is poised to go on the offense. Okay, so definitely Leningrad potentially could fall, if not this round, next round, depending on what Dutch does, and of course, what Sire Blood does as well during his turn that he is currently playing. All right, so now in the Atlantic, you definitely have the beginnings of a new German Navy or fleet, let's say, because there is a German Navy. There always was one. But here you have in Season 110, 1 destroyer and 2 submarines. Okay, I figure the purpose of that fleet is to further harass or block any attempts on the United States' part to perform any amphibious landing operations. All right, in the Mediterranean, things are pretty solid for the Axis powers, where they control or have choked the strategic naval passage of Gibraltar. Okay, where they control not only Morocco but Gibraltar. Okay, the key here is Gibraltar. All right, so definitely very formidable forces in these Axis forces in this region. Okay, also you have the Italians who are also poised to make further inroads in the Middle East and potentially into the Red Sea if German forces attack Egypt. And I have the feeling that that's exactly what's going to happen. And as I've stated before in other videos, we, the Allies, have pretty much written off Egypt as a loss. The victory objective, actually there are two victory objectives here that will be accomplished, and I believe it is the Northern Africa victory objective. That's one, okay? And the victory objective of Egypt, taking Cairo. So that's 2 and 1. So if the Axis powers attack Egypt, they will be acquiring 2 victory points. All right, because those are 2 victory objectives points that are now being taken by the Axis. So that should bring them up to 11 out of the 12 victory points that they require. All right, so what were the purchases, okay, that the German player made? Field Marshal Sire Blood, and here they are. Very interesting purchase, like always. The Germans, it's a combined purchase. The Germans purchased 7 infantry divisions, which they now recruited off the streets of Berlin, okay, and Greater Bohemia, and 1 naval transport, 3 tactical fighter squadrons, and 1 strategic bomber squadron. Very well-balanced purchase, and it makes sense at this point in time. So I'm in agreement there with that purchase. No disagreement there. All right. Okay, so it is the beginning of the German turn, beginning of round 7. Sit tight, and we'll be back with the order of combat shortly. All right, so let's segue into the order of combat here. Field Marshal Sire Blood has declared 2 battles. The first battle will be held in Belarus, where you have 1 armored division along with 1 SS crack infantry division attacking Belarus, where you have the last remaining infantry division of the French army defending. All right, so that's 2 divisions against 1. Let's see if the French go out victorious, or at least if they can at least incur damage on the enemy. So that's one of the 2 battles that Sire Blood declared with the Germans. The second battle is Egypt, where the Germans are going full throttle, and they're performing naval landings as well as airborne landings in the territory of Egypt. Remember, this territory is key because it's actually 2 points that they acquire, victory points, because Cairo itself is considered to be a victory city. All right, and then if the Axis powers control all of North Africa, that's a victory objective point. So that's 2 victory points overall that the Germans will be acquiring for the Axis powers. So you have the 4 bombers, okay, that were in Romania. Okay, they will be coming in at a movement of 4, I believe. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, actually 5, at a movement of 5. All right, so they have two movements left in their gas gauges, because there is an airbase in Romania. The Germans are also bringing in their 4 naval transports that are in Sea Zone 92. All right, and those 4 naval transports pick up the German forces that are both in Gibraltar and Morocco, which is 3 artillery pieces, 3 artillery divisions, 2 infantry, and 1 armored division, okay, into the attack. Okay, so that's a total of 6 ground units going in on this attack. Okay, defending are a total of 3 British artillery divisions, along with 1 armored division. Then you have a combined Anzac and British infantry force of 7 infantry divisions defending, along with 1 mechanized infantry also, with also 1 tactical fighter squadron and 1 fighter squadron defending. Okay, so these are the forces that are arrayed. This is a titanic battle that is going to be fought here. All right, guys, we'll be back with the results of battle. Oh wow, what a battle we just had here in northern Africa, northeastern Africa, in the territory of Egypt. Okay, the Germans just barely were able to successfully attack and take out the Allied army in Egypt. Okay, you only have one armor division and one artillery division remaining in Egypt. Okay, so successful battle for the Axis powers. They now have acquired, yes, acquired one victory objective point and one victory city point. So that's a total now that brings them just to 11 out of 12 victory points. So that gets them just so much closer now to achieving their required victory points to win the game by the end of round 8. Okay, so I must include that asterisk because the game still has to the rest has to be what is it? We still have the remainder of round 7 left and round 8. So let's not forget about that. All right. So what happened in the other battle? Battle of for Belarus. Okay, the French were taken out, but not before they themselves knocked out one infantry division. The SS crack unit there was stopped. Okay, they were taken out as a result of battle. So the Germans were successful here up in the north, where they were able to retake Belarus. Okay, we'll be back now shortly with the non-combat movements and final placements of units. All right, so let's go into the order of non-combat. Basically, the Germans had to perform quite a few of them, so I'll try to review or recap them as much as I possibly can. What I've done is I've actually laid down red battle markers next to each of the movements that were made by the Germans in order to for me to refresh my memory and not forget what the movements were. All right, so let's start in the Atlantic, where the Germans moved their battle cruiser from Sea Zone 92 and moved it over 2 spaces into Sea Zone 90. And the idea behind this is to start using the German fleet as blockers, naval blockers, this way denying the U.S. access into performing amphibious landings all over Northern Africa and Europe. Okay, the battleship. Okay, this battleship is the, which one is this? This is the Bismarck. Okay, Season 103, same thing, came over from season 92 at a movement of 2 naval seasons. All right, the destroyer in season 108, this destroyer also came from season 92 at a movement of 3. That'll be 1, 2, and 3. All right, so there's another this German destroyer, season 117. This German destroyer came over from season 110. Okay, that was also accompanied with 2 submarines that also moved, and the 2 submarines went into season 119. Okay, let's go into Scotland. You have 2 fighter squadrons along with 1 tactical fighter squadron that were brought over from the Strait of Gibraltar. Okay, I'm not quite sure where they were, if they were initially in Morocco or Gibraltar, but they did come from there. So these 3 squadrons landed in Scotland. And okay, so the idea is to deny the U.S. Potentially the territory of Scotland, and for the U.S. denying the U.S. the ability to use Scotland as a port of entry or a foothold. All right, so let's go to the Eastern Front. Okay, so what occurred here as far as non-combat movements are concerned? Well, as you can see, Leningrad. Yes, Leningrad has been evacuated. Leningrad evacuated. This is an important victory city for both the Allies and the Axis, and Field Marshal Sire Blood, recognizing that his position had become unattainable, decided to retreat and give the city back to the Russians. So the German armored division, okay, in Leningrad has fallen back to Finland. Okay, the bomber squadron that was here also deployed and transported 1 armored division into Syria at a movement of 6. Okay, so the idea, though, I'm assuming, is that the Axis powers want to achieve or secure the oil fields down in the Middle East. This is known as European oil, which is another victory objective that has now become accessible to the Axis powers. All right, so what else? What am I forgetting? Okay, so 1 infantry division brought over into Yugoslavia from Romania was brought over. Okay, that meant that there were 3 remaining infantry divisions in Romania that were railroaded into Western Germany. Guys, for those of you who do not know, according to the BBR, if you have an industrial complex, that any unit produced or starting from a territory that has an industrial complex can move at a movement of 3. And that is because, in theory, that there are railways that can act as the means of transportation. All right, so hence, if there were 3 infantry divisions, German infantry divisions here, they can now railroad at a movement of 3 back into Western Germany. All right, so I think that covers it for the non-combat movements. Okay, as you can see, the Germans have totally forsaken the Eastern Front, and rightfully so, because the Germans recognize that an invasion of Moscow or the Soviet Union now is unattainable, and it's too little, too late. Hence, they rather fortify their territories against the Americans, all right, and potentially the British as well, because I'm assuming that the German player, Field Marshal Sire Blood, is looking now to build the Atlantic Wall. Now, let me remind you folks that the Atlantic Wall, I know that before in a previous video, I had mentioned that to establish the Atlantic Wall, that you would have to have 4 infantry units in the following 4 territories: Norway, Denmark, Holland, Belgium, and Normandy, Bordeaux. Well, it's not infantry, just infantry. It's any 4 ground units, okay? And if the Axis can have 4 ground units, okay, in all 4 of these territories, that's a victory objective as well for the Axis. So as you can see, there's a reason why the Italians are up in Denmark and in Normandy, Bordeaux, and why with AAAs, by the way. And there's also another AAA German in Holland, Belgium. Okay, the tricky part here for the German player is Normandy. Okay, it's a little bit more difficult to ship over ground units from mainland Europe over to Normandy. So let's see how Field Marshal Sideblood goes about doing that. That's why I guess he purchased a couple of bombers and, of course, one naval transport for him to be able to do that. Okay. All right. So, all right, that's about it for the non-combat movements. Let's go ahead now with the actual placement of newly purchased and recruited units for the Third Reich. We'll be back shortly. All right, let's move into now the placement of newly purchased and recruited units. The Germans decided to place their newly purchased naval transport in Sea Zone 112. All right, so they placed it there. They placed their 7 newly recruited infantry into Western Germany, along with their strategic bomber squadron, and the remainder of the placements, their 3 fighter squadrons, were placed in the United Kingdom. And that's it for the placement of units for the UK. And that is the end of turn 7 for Germany. All right, so what an interesting set of circumstances the Germans and Axis players overall find themselves in. Definitely the game is still, let's say, contended. It's going to be very close. It's really, really hard to say who the winner, who the projected winners can be. Definitely end of turn 7 for the Germans. The Germans have acquired an additional 2 victory points, placing the Axis powers now at 11 out of 12 victory points. Okay, we're going to assume now that the Italian player VK Cowboy is going to make further inroads round 7 and potentially acquire a 12th victory point. Okay, so that's going to be interesting. But however, let's not forget that the Allies do go before the Italian player VK Cowboy. Hence, the 11 victory points that the Axis currently enjoy may be withered or go down by at least 1, because Hong Kong may potentially fall this round to the Allies as well. And there's also the possibility of Shanghai, which is a victory city, point that the Allies may acquire also, depending on how events evolve in the Pacific. All right, guys, so now we officially are turning over the torch to Dutch Lancaster, who is in command of the Soviet Union. All right, let's see what Dutch Lancaster does, what his moves are. A lot of hinges for the Allies. Depending upon the moves that Dutch makes. Okay, so let's sit tight and the saga continues, guys. We're getting there. One more round after this one and the war is over. All right, guys. Don't forget to bunker down and play. Enjoy.